The Metropolitan Division, similar to the Atlantic Division, I think that there is just a lot of parity in this division. I think there's a lot of good teams and a lot of teams that are very much capable of making the playoffs. And unfortunately, I think the one team that has a very slim chance of making the playoffs is the Philadelphia Flyers. Philly's going to be without a couple fairly long-time Flyers. Kevin Hayes goes to St. Louis. JVR leaves in free agency. Not a very long-lasting relationship, but Tony DeAngelo is gone, and they also trade Ivan Provorov. So a lot of roster turnover. They get Sean Couturier back. He missed all of last season. They get Cam Atkinson back, who missed all of last season. That's two big adds. They're definitely getting up there in age, and it will be an interesting storyline to make note of and see how they come back from those injuries. But two very productive players throughout their entire career. The team also adds Ryan Poehling on their fourth line, Garnet Hathaway. That's a fourth line you don't want to play against. You're going to get absolutely fucking bodied. Bobby Brink, we're going to get our first real taste of Brink after a great college career at the University of Denver. Had an all-right professional rookie season in Lehigh, 28 points, 12 goals in 41 games. But it looks like he's going to get an extended look on the Flyers' top 6 unit. Rest of their forward core, Joel Farabee, very solid player. Owen Tippett had a really nice year last year after coming over in that Claude Giroux trade, 27 goals. Love to see that from him. Big Morgan Frost guy. I think he gives you a little bit of everything on offense. He's a good passer, pretty underrated shot, good speed. Scott Lawton is, your stereotypical kind of bottom 6 guy. You can play up your lineup if need be. Would not be surprised if he was out the door later this season, but a good player nonetheless. Noah Cates had an unbelievably under the radar rookie season, 38 points in 23 games. He's very good in his own zone. Big fan of that player. And Travis Konechny, who is more or less the star of the show on this Flyers team, was a point per game last game, 31 goals in 60 games. He missed a little bit of time due to injury. So definitely some intriguing names in that forward core. Nice mix of youth and some veterans that are going to play the game hard, obviously, and with Torts as their coach. Never know what to expect. Moving on to defense, it's shaky, big time. Starting off with Cam York. I love Cam York, love his game. Was a stud at the University of Michigan and has always looked good in, World Juniors. Travis Sanheim had a kind of a down year last year. You heard his name out in trade talks this offseason. He's still in Philly. He's just a solid top 4 guy. They bring in Mark Stahl. I guess he played for Torts in New York many years ago. He got far with the Panthers last season. I think he's kind of washed, if I'm being honest. I don't think it's doing much, and he's blocking some key minutes from some younger players that I think should just be playing. Sean Walker comes over from LA. I think he's a solid defenseman. He can kind of play that 4th, 5th, 6th defenseman role. Nick Seeler is pretty underrated in that regard. Kind of plays a similar game, just really sound in his own end, solid defender. And Igor Zamula, young defenseman that should be getting some ice time, plays a solid game as well. In net, you got Carter Hart, kind of interesting career path for him as of late. I had a decent season last year in front of or behind a pretty dreadful team. It'll be interesting to see who kind of claims that backup spot, whether that's Cal Peterson, Samuel Urson, Felix Sandstrom. I'd probably go with one of the younger guys unless you're kind of trying to regain some of Cal Peterson's value because he was a pretty good goalie with LA a few years ago. But Flyers, yeah, they'll be at the bottom of the Metro. Oh, and how could I forget Rasmus Ristolainen? Yeah, whatever. He's not great. Yeah. This next team, I really wanted to make a bold placement and put them higher up. I think they're going to be pretty good, especially with all the injuries they had last season. With that, I'm referring to the Columbus Blue Jackets, who had relatively high expectations last season, but just fell completely flat. As I said, they were just so banged up. Zach Werenski missed almost the entire season. He played 13 games. Patrick Laine played 55. Jenner missed a handful of games. Adam Boquist missed some games. Jake Bean missed almost the entire season. Like this defensive core was really dreadful last season. They were giving Erica Branson big-time minutes, Andrew Peak big-time minutes, where a lot of those guys were far better off playing in, bottom pair depth defenseman roles. So this season, they're basically coming into it with 3 new top 4 defensemen. Zach Werenski, when healthy and at his best, is a top, 20, 30 defenseman in the NHL. They bring in Ivan Provorov from the aforementioned Philadelphia Flyers. I think he has a nice opportunity to bounce back here. He's obviously kind of fell out of favor in Philly. I think he still plays a pretty solid game. I think he's going to be paired with their other new acquisition with Damon Severson. Big fan of his game. He had a really good year in New Jersey last season, and that just kind of rounds out a way better top 4 than they had last year. Obviously no Gavrikov this season. They dealt him at the trade deadline last year. Definitely going to hurt, but I think their top 4 is in far better shape. Looks like Andrew Peak will be filling that out as well. He's fine as a complimentary guy. Not great, but not awful. Jake Bean seems to be back. He's going to be on that bottom pairing with Erica Branson, and with all the defensemen they had playing minutes last season, they have some guys they can plug and play kind of throughout the defense. Moving on to their forward core, I like it. There's a lot of young talent with this team. First line, looks like Laine's going to get a shot at center. I've heard he looked really good in the preseason, so it'll be interesting to see how he turns out there. Johnny Gaudreau did kind of everything he could have done last season with the surrounding cast. He had 74 points in 80 games. I think you take that. I think this season he'll go back to that 80 to kind of 90 point ceiling that he has. Cole Sillinger's going to get an extended look on that first line. He was not great last season after a pretty impressive rookie year. He had 16 tucks in that rookie season, and he had 3 goals and 11 points in 64 games last year. Pretty snake-bitten, 3.2 shooting percentage, should certainly bounce back, and he's so talented. I think he's going to have a good season. Alex Texier comes back. He was dealing with some problems in his life. He's playing in Europe. Excited to see him back. I've been a fan of his game for a long time. I remember when the Blue Jackets played the Bruins in the playoffs in, I believe it was 2019. I was pretty impressed with his game. Just a super skilled player. Boone Jenner, you're getting from Boone Jenner, El Capitan now. Just a super underrated player overall. 26 goals in 68 games last year is pretty damn good. Emil Benstrom is a fine player. Kirill Marchenko is a guy I definitely take note of. He had 21 goals in 59 games. He only had 4 assists, which is just a crazy ratio. But he's a natural goal scorer. I think he'll certainly hit that 20-goal mark again. Adam Fantilli. I wish he was playing in between a guy like Laine or Gaudreau. But playing on the third line is not going to be too bad for his development. I think he's super NHL ready. What he was doing in college is near unheard of. He had 30 goals and 65 points in a single season in his first season and only season in college. Just crazy. That's like Jack Eichel numbers. It might even be better. He's already kind of filled out his frame. He's a big body. He's not going to be one of those smaller players that takes a while to adjust to the size of the NHL. The speed may be another thing, but college hockey's just improved so much as of late. It's such a great league. I think he comes in and has a really, really good year. Looks like Kent Johnson's going to start the season as a healthy scratch, which I think is ridiculous. You cannot do that. The kid is 21 years old and had a super productive rookie season. He needs to be in your lineup. I don't care. We can't be giving Justin Danforth, no disrespect to Justin Danforth, you can't be giving him top 9 minutes and letting Kent Johnson ride the bench. Just can't do it. Jack Roslovic, good playmaker. Looks like he's going to be playing on the 4th line with hometown kid Sean Corrali and Eric Robinson. Overall, I think that forward core is pretty good. And then in net, Elvis Merzlikins is not going to be as bad as it was last year. It was just a horrendous season from him. Was giving up over 4 goals a game. A lot of that has to do with that defensive core last year. It was dreadful, but Merzlikins wasn't helping himself at all. No more Korpisalo in net, so I can certainly see goaltending being a bit of an issue for this team, but I think this team could surprise some people. I think they're going to be a frisky team kind of around the playoff picture for a good portion of the season. Next up, we have another team that was absolutely ravaged with injuries last season. I had relatively high hopes for the Capitals last year, and they did not live up to expectations at all. I'm going to go through some of the injuries this team had, though. Tom Wilson played 33 games. Nicholas Backstrom played 39 games. John Carlson, 40 games. Sonny Milano, 64 games. TJ Oshie, 58 games. Faravari missed some time. Ovechkin missed some time. So just absolutely brutal injury luck for the Capitals last season. Obviously, no more Dmitry Orlov as well. They traded him at the deadline last year, and he's now in Carolina with their interdivision rival. They did pick up Rasmus Sandin, and he looked excellent in his short stint with them last season. 15 points in 19 games. It looks like he's going to get a real chance to flourish on that team. I'd assume Carlson will still retain power play 1 role, but Sandin should get a lot of minutes. I think the defensive core as a whole is a little underrated. Nick Jensen, I'm a big fan of his game. Really solid in his own end. Martin Faravari, I mentioned, is a good, nice young player. Van Riemsdyk is kind of everything you want out of a bottom pairing defenseman, just rock solid in his own end. Looks like Lucas Johansson's going to get a chance to play this season. Obviously, brother of Ryan Johansson. Pretty early pick previously. First real chance at getting some NHL time. Rest of the forward group, Connor McMichael's going to have a chance to really prove for himself what he can do. Backstrom looked great in the preseason from everything I've seen. You're getting from Ovechkin. You're getting from Kuzi, if he gives a shit, at least. Dylan Strome had a great year last year. I still don't know why the Blackhawks didn't qualify him. They just gave him away for free. You would have to think they could have retained some sort of assets for him, but 23 goals, 65 points from Strome. Sonny Milano is another player who kind of found his footing, found a home with the Caps last year, 33 points in 64 games. Anthony Mantha has been an utter disappointment for the Capitals, just 27 points in 67 games last year and not showing a whole lot of promise in that respect. It's kind of do or die for Mantha and his career. If he wants to extend his stay in the NHL as kind of a top 9 player, he's got to show something this year. Alexei Protas is another guy I want to mention. He's massive. He's 6'8", 225, just a big body. That plays a pretty solid game all around. And then in net, we got Darcy Kemper, who I've always been a big fan of. I think he's still a top, 10, 12 goalie in the league. He was banged up last year as well, so I'm expecting a pretty good year from him. Another guy they picked up, Max Pacioretty, he's going to be out for the start of the season. Obviously missed the majority of last year as well, but they find themselves in the playoff hunt towards the, midway point in the season, and he comes back. That's almost a free trade deadline sort of acquisition. And in that same respect, Joel Edmondson they pick up from Montreal. He's starting the year on the IR, but should be helpful later on in the season. Next up, we have the New York Islanders, who just had a pretty rough offseason, all things considered. They lose Zach Parise, who's still a free agent, but looks like he's probably going to retire. The Josh Bailey era comes to an end, and they signed Julien Gauthier. I will say, obviously worth noting, that they picked up Bo Horvat and Pierre Engvall around the deadline last season, so now they will have both those two for the full year. Horvat played all right when he got to New York. Wasn't great, 16 points, 7 Gs in 30 games. I'd expect better from him for sure. I was a fan of Pierre Engvall's game, though. He was averaging a point every other game in 18 games for the team. I like his game, his speed. I think that could be an asset in kind of anywhere in your lineup. I think it's also worth mentioning that they had a couple sizable injuries last year. Barzal missed, 24, 25 games. Palmieri missed some time. Adam Pelech missed some time. So all those guys will likely be healthy to start the year. As a whole, Matthew Barzal, I need to see a little more from him. Obviously a great player in his own right, but he hasn't quite reached that next level that I think a lot of people want him and expect him to end up reaching. On the other hand, Brock Nelson is a fucking beast. If any of you guys are sleeping on Brock Nelson, stop it, because he's one of the better goal scorers in the entire NHL. He had 36 last year and has really put together a few awesome seasons for the Islanders. You got Anders Lee, the captain. He's going to be a good net front presence, especially on that power play. Jean-Gabriel Pageau is kind of your ideal third-line center, smart player, good two-way game, pretty clutch, all things considered as well. As I said, Palmieri is going to have a full year. He was pretty solid last year. You know what you're getting from him, kind of a 20-25 goal year. Other than that, you know what you're getting from that fourth line. They're just going to dump and chase, rock some bodies, good penalty killers. They're good for a big goal every few games with Martin Cizikas and Clutterbuck. Hudson Fasching and Simon Holmstrom are guys that work hard, and I guess you could see them moving up in the lineup. Looks like they're going to have fairly prominent roles. On defense, they have an elite defense. No questioning that. Noah Dobson has been great. He's still super young, 24 years old, plenty of room to grow. Adam Pelech and Ryan Pulock are two just studs on the back end, two of the better defensive defensemen in the entire NHL, in my opinion. Alexander Romanov had a good first season in the Island, just another guy who's physical, strong player, good in his own end. Sebastian Aho, the defenseman, is a nice bottom pairing guy, and they bring back Scott Mayfield as well, who again is a good bottom pairing guy. And then in net you have, for my money, the best tandem in the NHL, Ilya Sorokin and Varlamov. Not getting any better than that. Even as a Bruins fan, you just got to give them credit. Sorokin and Varlamov, not getting any better than that. Overall, this team is going to be feisty like they always are. They're going to win a lot of 3-2, 3-1, 2-1 games. They're going to be kept in these games with their goaltending and with their strong defensive play. And I have them just outside looking into the playoffs, but it would not surprise me if they made it, not at all. Up next, we have the Pittsburgh Penguins, who I do have making the playoffs as one of the two wild cards. A very, very busy offseason for Kyle Dubas, his first year in Pittsburgh. More or less changed out the entirety of the bottom six in two pretty prominent defensive roles. No more Jeff Petrie, no more Jason Zucker, Brian Dumoulin's gone, Danton Heinen's gone, Brock McGinn's gone, Ryan Paling's gone. They traded Bluger last year at the deadline. Mikhail Granlund is gone after a short stint. Jan Ruda also gone. Josh Archibald also gone. In their place, they pick up Lars Eller, they pick up Matt Nieto, they pick up Nola Chari, Jansen Harkins, they recently picked up. They bring in Riley Smith from Vegas, big fan of that acquisition. And then the two big ones, in my opinion, are signing Ryan Graves, who is a rock solid defenseman for the Devils last season, and Erik Karlsson, obviously the big one there. Karlsson is as good as it gets for puck-moving offensive defensemen. I know there's plenty to be wished for in his own zone, but what he does well, he does better than, just about anyone in the entire NHL. And don't be bringing up plus-minus and stuff. Last year he was on a dreadful Sharks team with some pretty awful goaltending, and I want to say he was even at 5-on-5 last season on that really bad Sharks team. So I think he's going to come in and play really well. He's going to be paired with Marcus Pettersson, who is one of the more underrated defensemen in the entire NHL, in my opinion. I think his game is very, very good. He's great in his own zone. He's pretty good with the puck. He's a big body. Obviously, you have Letang. I wonder how Letang and Karlsson can kind of coexist. It didn't work out great for Karlsson and Burns in San Jose, but has another chance to do it with Pittsburgh. And it's just a system where everyone truly buys into it. Rounding out that defense, Pierre Oliver Joseph is a nice little player. He's still pretty young. And Chad Ruhwedel is just a solid defenseman in his own zone. As I said, for the forwards, they pick up Riley Smith from Vegas. I love that acquisition. Ricard Raquel had a good first full year in Pittsburgh, 60 points last year. Really good year for him. You know what you're getting out of Brian Rust. Plays a hard-nosed game, good for 20, 25 goals, just a perfect complementary top six player. Jake Gensel is constantly under the radar. He is one of the better goal scorers in the entire NHL. And then you just know what you're getting out of Malkin and Sid. They still both have it, still both unbelievable players. Malkin, fully healthy last season. Hopefully that keeps up for them. And then getting to in goal, we have Tristan Jarry and a new addition of Alex Nedeljkovic. Jarry was kind of banged up last year, wasn't great, but he's a super streaky goalie. And when he's on, he's on. They bring in Nedeljkovic for that backup role who, was great his rookie season with Carolina and hasn't really found that success since. Certainly wasn't on a great Detroit team last year, so I think he'll kind of find his role in that backup position for the Pens. Up next, we have the New York Rangers. I think this team is going to be really good this year. I think they're better off going into this season than they were last season. Their two trade deadline acquisitions, Tarasenko and Kane, are no longer there. But aside from that, it seems to be a pretty similar team as they started with last season. They bring in Blake Wheeler on a super low risk, high reward deal. I think he's still got plenty of game left. Big body, good guy in the locker room, great passer. He's got crazy vision still. Eric Gustafsson's going to have a role on that bottom pairing. I think Gustafsson is just a really solid kind of offensive defenseman. I'm curious to see how he does with Schneider. I think that has a good potential to be a good pair. Rest of that D-core, you got Keandre Miller, who's a great skater. I think he's going to continue to grow into a bigger role on this team. Still just 24 years old, 43 points last season. He's paired with Jacob Trouba, Mr. Headshot. Only half kidding there. He's just a presence on the ice. Need to make sure you keep your head up around him. And then their first pairing, which for my money is a top 3 pairing in the league, that features Ryan Lindgren, who is one of the more underrated defensemen in the league. I think he's an absolute beast. He's excellent in his own end, throws his body around despite not being a super big guy. And again, he's still young. He's 25 years old. With him on that top pair is Adam Fox, second best defenseman in the league, in my opinion. Just unbelievable defenseman in all facets of the game. Their forward core, I'm looking for a big year from Kaapo Kakko. I think he, more than Lafreniere, is kind of ready to take that next step. I almost see like a Valeri Nichushkin, Turi Lehkonen type season from him. I know Nichushkin had like 70-something points. I don't know if that was last year, 2 years ago, so maybe not quite to that level, but I can see Kakko being just a super reliable, complimentary guy in that top 6 who can score 20, 25 goals and 50-something points. Just kind of be a cog next to a Mika Zibanejad, who's going to give you 40 goals and, over 80 points, 90 points, or be a guy next to Artemi Panarin that can kind of cover Panarin's weaknesses. Filip Chytil had a nice season last year. I think he has a chance to really step up yet again. Vincent Trocheck was really solid. He's always just been a super underrated player, good on all ends of the ice. Chris Kreider, what the hell has happened to him over the past couple seasons? He's 31 now, 32, and he's playing the best hockey of his career despite just being a big body who uses speed to really excel. Will Queel, I think that's how you pronounce it, really impressed this preseason. Looks like he's going to have a top 9 role with the Rangers this year as well. Was pretty good last year in Hartford. Had a nice World Juniors a couple years back as well. I like his game. And then just finishing out that forward core, you got Barclay Goodrow, good player. Love to have him on the fourth line. Maybe not for the money he's making, but good player. They bring in Nick Bonino and Tyler Pitlick as well. And then in net, they have, up there, I don't know if it's him or Sorokin, but Shesterkin, absolute animal. He's going to give you a chance to win every game.
And Jonathan Quick, who is not a good goalie anymore, absolute legend, but he just doesn't have it anymore. I'd be worried whenever he's in net. Bet the over, honestly, whenever he's in net. But overall, Rangers, really good team. New Jersey, the New Jersey Devils. What a year for them last year. Not gonna lie, predicted them to have a big boost. I don't know if it was quite like this, but I was high on them going into last season. They were great, just top to bottom. What a forward group. Jack Hughes just missing out on 100 points. Nico Hischier is the most underrated center in the league. Just excellent in all facets of the game. He was just missing a point per game last year, had 80 and 81, and he's great in his own zone as well. I think he's going to win a Selke in the very near future, if not next season. They're going to have a full season of Timo Meier. Was okay when he got to New Jersey last season, but his pedigree is excellent. Still had 40 goals combined last season, 35 the year before. I love his game. He uses his body and his speed so goddamn well. Jesper Bratt, another player who's near a point per game. They pick up Tyler Toffoli, who had, 35 goals last season. Andre Palat missed some time, but when you have a guy like him and Eric Hall on your third line, and infusing a little bit of youth with Alexander Holtz, just crazy. They pick up Thomas Nosek in the offseason. He's kind of a defense, only fourth liner, but solid on his own end. Michael McLeod and Nate Bastion are two young guys who like to throw their body around, just solid all around. They also have Curtis Lazar this year. On the back end, I think they're going to be a little bit worse than they were last season. They obviously lose Ryan Graves and Severson, both going elsewhere in free agency. Dougie Hamilton is a beast, though. He's on that first pair with Jonas Siegenthaler, who I know have been thrown around, very underrated guys, but another super underrated player. He's great in his own end. Gap control, good stick, just strong skater all around. John Marino was awesome. His first year in New Jersey last season, super successful. Kevin Ball looks like he's going to be coming into that Ryan Graves role. I like his game. I don't think he's going to be quite the player that Graves was quite yet, but he's young and has a lot of room to grow. Another guy, Luke Hughes. All the potential in the world. See what his two brothers are doing, and I've heard some people in the past say that he's the most skilled out of the three, which, if that's the case, I mean, God knows what this kid can do at the NHL level. Another guy I forgot to mention, Dawson Mercer. Can't believe he slipped my mind. He had 56 points last year and has really rounded out into a well-rounded player. And then in net, we have Vitek Vanacek, who was pretty solid last season, gave him a chance to win in a lot of games. 911 save percentage, 245 goals allowed average. Wasn't great in the playoffs, but who was great in the playoffs, who I expect to take over the starting role at some point this season, is Akira Schmid. In the regular season, really solid, 922. With a 213 goals allowed average, and in just 14 games he was good for 7 goals saved above average. And then in the playoffs he was cold as ice, 2 shutouts, 921, 235. Really gave the Devils a chance to make a nice little run after they knocked off the Rangers in the first round. So Devils, they're going to be a great team. Just unbelievable to watch. So fun, so fast. Great team. And then we have, last and certainly not least, the Carolina Hurricanes. What an absolute freak of a team. This team is ridiculous. Obviously, an unbelievable season last year from top to bottom. And they only got better this season. All they lose, Paul Stastny, Calvin DeHaan, Derek Stepan, and Max Pacioretty after he played 5 games for that team. They bring in a guy like Michael Bunting, who I'm a fan of. He had a really successful year last season with Toronto. They bring in Dmitry Orlov, who was unbelievable for the Bruins in the end of the regular season and in the playoffs. They also bring back Anthony DeAngelo to an already unbelievable team. Martin Necas, great player. He's still very young. A lot of room to grow for him. Sebastian Aho, a top 10 center in the entire NHL. I don't think there's a lot of people who can truly dispute that. Andrei Svechnikov, he needs to stay healthy. I think when he is healthy, he really has the potential to be a 35-40 goal guy. Jesperi Kotkaniemi, in an expanded role for really the first time in his career, played pretty damn solid. Just missed out on 20 goals. Kind of good in all ends of the ice last year. Teuvo Teravainen missed some time, but he was solid. Kind of a down year for him, but I'd expect him to kind of get back to his, 60-something point range. Seth Jarvis is a guy who's still super young, 21 years old, a lot of speed, a lot of skill. Their third line, the MSF line, I think that's the name of it. Martinook, Stahl, and Fost, one of the better shutdown lines in all of hockey. And then they also have Stefan Nason, who has kind of been a journeyman his entire career. He had a nice season with New Jersey a little while ago. But really came into his own last season with the Canes. 13 goals, 36 points, 78 games, not too shabby. Then moving on to the defense, I already mentioned two pieces. They added an Orlov and D'Angelo, but the rest of the defensive core is unbelievable. Brent Burns returns to form last season. He was great for this team, both offensively and he was pretty damn good defensively. I know a knock on his game for a long time was that he was kind of an offense-only guy. He had a great season, as did Jacob Slavin, who is a top 10, 15 defenseman in the NHL. Not too many guys better than him in their own zone, and he's got good speed, good puck abilities, just unbelievable defenseman. I'm pretty sure Brady Shea led all defensemen in goals last year, 38 points as well. And then you have Brett Pesce, who looked like he was maybe going to get traded this offseason, but they hang on to him. I thought that was a smart move. I think this is kind of a cup or bust type of season for the Hurricanes. In net, they have three reliable goaltenders. Freddie Anderson had an okay year last year. Not bad by any means, but not great. Antti Ranta was pretty good, 9-10, 2.23 goals allowed average. And then they also have Pyotr Kochetkov, who has shown signs of being a brilliant young goaltender. Curious to see what sort of role those three guys take shape. I think whoever ends up winning the starting job is going to have a very good season. So, number one in the Metro, and a team that wouldn't surprise me to be number one in the league, we have the Carolina Hurricanes. Let me know what you guys think. Again, just a really good division, top to bottom. I love it if the Blue Jackets surprise some teams. Caps were banged up last year. They still have a pretty decent roster. Islanders are always feisty. Penguins made some big moves. Rangers are great. Devils dynamic, and Hurricanes with the best defensive core in the NHL. I don't see anyone really usurping them.